Production. All right, so chances are this video is going to be really screwed up with all the audio at the very beginning because everything is going crazy. But one of the things we can do when we're trying to figure out how much to prepare for, we can actually identify what our sales volume is going to be. We can look at the number of guests that we've had during a certain period. So again, forecasting is looking at past data to project what we're going to do in the future. Okay, so if we know that we have a major convention in town that has 40,000 people visiting, we know that that's coming up. That's information you have access to. Okay, it's not information that's just surprise. Guess what? We got this 40,000 person conference attending downtown San Antonio, but you have access to that through your Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so if we know that's happening, we're going to plan accordingly for that. If we had a 40,000 person event or conference on November 11th of 2019, but we don't have that in 2020, we can't prepare for the same volume, okay? Because we're not going to have that large event. So think about 2018. We had the men's Final Four here during March Madness and the first weekend of April. We had men's Final Four. We didn't have that this year. So we can't always just look at whatever we did last year and do it again this year. We have to look at what the similar conditions are in order to forecast appropriately, okay? That menu mix, does that sound somewhat familiar? Fingers crossed, it does, okay? You remember when we talked about popularity index, where we sold, a certain number of each item and we figured out what their popularity was, okay? So let's do a quick example. Let's do very, very, very quick, okay? So give me, we're gonna do a four item menu. Laura, give me one item. Brisket, okay, we're going barbecue. Okay, Greg, give me another one. Well, we'll go with entrees.
Shrimp and grits.
Okay, shrimp and grits. Anissa, give me one more. Sausage on a stick. Okay, and last one, Michael. Pulled pork. Okay, so keep our numbers easy. Let's go ahead and just do increments of 10. Okay, so Damien, give me a number of how many brisket we sold. Increments of 10. Keep thinking. I'm coming back to you. Perla. For shrimp and grits. 20. Okay. Alyssa. For sausage on a stick.
30.
Okay. Dean. For pulled pork. 50. How many brisket did we serve, Damien?
40.
40. Okay, cool. So let's add all of these up. We have 80 plus 20 is 100, so we have 140, right? We served 140, and now we're going to divide each one by a 140. So Ryan, you take brisket. Dejan, you take shrimp and grits. Gabriel, take sausage on a stick. Michael, take pulled pork. And tell me what your percentage is.
I'm going to round to the second decimal point.
The first decimal place. First decimal place.
0.35.
So 35%?
0.36. 357.
357. Okay, which one was that?
Pulled pork.
So 35.7%. Who had brisket?
Oh, I did.
Go for it.
28.5.
28.5%.
29.
Okay. Who had shrimp and grits? Dejan, what'd you get? 14%. And sausage on a stick? 21%? Okay. So how do we check this? How do we check this? Add them all up and we should get 100%. Hey Siri. Oh, it's not working. Still mad at me, apparently.
Did you call her Alexa?
I did call her Alexa before. 99.2. So there's probably 14 and 21. There's probably decimals with that, correct? More than likely. We're off by 8/10. Well, that's not horrible, but it should be closer to 100%. Okay. It's okay to have one decimal place. You don't necessarily have to go up to 29 or 36. It's okay to have one decimal place with all percentages. Okay. So, anyways, this is what we're working with. These are these percentages. This is how popular it was today when we had 140 guests. But if I'm forecasting, and I think today, yesterday we had 140. Today, I think we're going to have, what's a bigger number than 140?
200.
200. Okay. So now, today, if I think I'm going to forecast that I'm going to have 200, well, now I can actually apply all of these percentages to 200. So the previous example, what did we do? We multiplied or divided? We divided. So now we're going the opposite direction. We need to multiply. So we multiply 200 times 28.5. Make sure you use the decimal place, like the decimal version of the percentage, and we get 57. I need to prepare for 57 servings of brisket. We see how this works? It goes the opposite direction. So we can use this menu mix to actually determine how much food we need to actually prepare. So this is where your chefs get that information from. They look at what happened before. Look at that percentage. This is one way that they can do it. So we take 14% times 100 and we get, or sorry, times 200, and we get 28 servings. Okay. 21% times 200, 42, and 35.7 is 71. Okay. So 71 point what? 0.4. So you could technically take that up to 72 because you can't do 4/10 of a serving of brisket. Or, sorry, pulled pork. Okay. See how this works? Do we always have to go up? No, we can go down. What was our original customer count? 140, right? We could actually go down to 100. If we went down to 100, we do 28 servings, 14 servings, 21 servings, and 36 servings. Okay, so we can go up or down. Basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out how popular our items are and then just apply that to what we need to actually prep. Questions, comments, concerns about menu mix? Yes, sir.
So on a real lesson, you would actually do a little more variety to the safety factor, not safety factor.
You might, like, let's say, okay, we've done a brisket math problem, right? Okay, so let's say our brisket, we actually come out with 25 servings out of a brisket, right? Well, if I need 57 portions, I might do 2 briskets and be 7 short, or I might do 3 briskets and be a little over, and then if I sell it, great. If not, I'm going to hold it and sell it the next day in some capacity. Okay, so there's a certain way. We'll talk about that at the end of the lecture. But there's a way to do that where you don't necessarily. I'm only going to do 57. Okay, you might say I can go ahead and do 60 servings of brisket. I can go ahead and do 28. I can maybe go ahead and do 30 servings of shrimp and grits. Okay, this just kind of gives you a starting point, especially if your recipe. So think about your recipes, right? If your recipe makes 32 portions and you only need 28, it's a whole lot easier to go ahead and just make all 32 portions than try and convert that to where you only have to end up with 28 servings, right? So think about the recipe also when it comes to that. Good question. Any other questions about this? So if on Wednesday, if I give you a quiz on this topic, you guys are all gonna master it, right? No questions?
So you tell me. You're recording this.
I am recording this, yes. Yep. Okay. So this is basically, let's do another quick example. I'm not gonna do a whole thing like this. Let's just do another quick example, okay? So let me erase this. Let's work only with our brisket, okay? And let's make our brisket a relatively easy. Let's say we served how many servings of brisket today? 300. Okay, so we served 300 today, and overall we sold 1,000 menu items. So 300 divided by 1,000 is 300 divided by 1,000 is what? Is 30%, right? We all see how that works? Total, that is 30%. Okay? 30%. Tomorrow, we're expecting, I don't know, how much? 500 people tomorrow. So 500 times 30% gives me 150. You saw today was 1,000. We served half that. We're expecting half of that tomorrow. So that means 300 divided by 2 is 150. We can double check our math. Okay, does that make sense? Let's have a random number. Rachel, what's a random, completely random number, not even? I mean, it could be 647. Okay, so now on Wednesday, we're expecting 647 people. We can keep that same 30%. Okay, and now 647. 194.4? Oh, 0.1. Thank you. So we can round that up to 195 servings. Right? So this is not something that we're going to maybe do every single day. We could see how close it is to our actual average, but maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter, we're going to reevaluate. Every time we reevaluate our menu, that's where we're going to get this percentage from to help us figure out what we're going to produce. Okay. So here you can see we have our percentage right here. We have what we are going to prepare, what we actually sold, and then we have our leftovers. This is really interesting. What happened to our broiled salmon? We ran out. We want to make a note of that. We ran out at 1:10. Holy cow. If we opened up at 11 o'clock, it was a really popular menu. We didn't serve. We didn't prep enough. We don't want to run out. Maybe this is during Lent, and people are eating fish. And so maybe we need to realize, oh my gosh, yeah, duh, it's Lent. I need to go ahead and prepare more fish or fish items. Okay, and so just because chicken a la king is one of our more popular items, and the roast sirloin of beef is one of our most popular items on the menu as well, doesn't necessarily mean that whatever's happening during that time can't influence our production schedule. It's also important for us to know when we run out of things so that we can know tomorrow, let's go ahead and maybe prep a little bit more. Okay? Or shows the weather as well. Yep. Why is the weather important?
People are going out more.
If it's cold, people don't want to do like soups or maybe.
Okay, so maybe if it's cold, people are going to want to eat soups.
If it's cold, no one wants to go out.
If it's cold, maybe no one wants to go out. In the hotel world, we love it when it rains. Okay? We love it when it rains because that means people are going to sit in our restaurants and eat. Otherwise, if we're downtown San Antonio, you're going to go to the Riverwalk and eat at a restaurant. You're not going to stay in the hotel. So when I went to Sheraton Gunther, man, when there was rain forecasted, I loved it. That means the guests, either our in-room dining was going to increase or our restaurant was going to be busy because people don't want to go out in the rain. Okay? And so that could have an indication as well. As you're keeping track of all this paperwork, yeah, we had all this product left over because we prepped it, but because it was raining, nobody came. So that's the reason why. It's not because we just over prepped. It just means that people just weren't coming into the restaurant for whatever reason. Okay? So this production schedule is really important for us to keep track. When we're talking about running out of a product, we definitely don't want to do that, especially if it's one of our signature products. This could also be something where maybe they were just out of salmon. Maybe the food provider just didn't have salmon. Maybe the salmon that was brought to your restaurant was rejected in the receiving process. So there's all these different circumstances that just look at this piece of paper, we can't just, there's not a cookie cutter answer. There's so many things that could go wrong or be the reason why we run out. It's not just, oh, we ran out because we didn't prep enough. Maybe we didn't even have the salmon to prep. Okay, so there's all these different considerations that you as a manager, that's your role, that's your job, is to identify and investigate why these issues are happening so that they don't happen again. Sometimes it's within our control. If we just didn't prep enough, well, we didn't prep enough. That's within our control. If we don't have salmon because it was rejected because the truck broke down and it was over temp when it came into our restaurant, then that's out of our control. Okay, so there's all these different scenarios that we could possibly think of as to why we ran out of a product. Yes, sir.
So that was the average percentage on a daily basis they did, or is that just for that day?
So this right here is the percentage of that's that menu mix percentage. So it can be you can do one of two things. You can keep a weekly running of that to figure out, and if you have everything in a computerized system, it'll keep track of that for you, what the percentage is. So you can use that to apply, or you can once a month or once a quarter when you do your menu analysis to find out what your dog, star, puzzles, and plow horses are. You can just use that as kind of like a running average. Yes, ma'am.
What if in the situations that this percentage is a little low and you try to push it, like let's, run a promotion with the servers and try to push this product?
Yeah.
Would that be a good thing?
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to try to increase the popularity of that item, yeah, you just need to make sure you're prepping enough for it because you don't want to push a special and then run out of it. Right? And so an example, when I was in Galveston, the seafood restaurant we went to was out of oysters and they were out of crabs. Okay? But it's just because there were no oysters and crabs to have. And so there's apparently at that time there was a shortage. I don't know. Even if you were in basic skills class just recently in the last couple of weeks, when you were shucking oysters, there was a shortage of oysters. That's why we didn't. The seafood place that we go to didn't have oysters for us to get for you guys. We had to go to Central Market, I think, to get oysters for those classes. So sometimes just in general, there could be a shortage. Think about, when we had that shortage of romaine lettuce. Okay? We had that shortage of romaine lettuce because of E. coli. I think it was E. coli, right? Or is it? Okay. Yeah, and so because of that, everyone was out of lettuce. that plays a huge role on the product that we have available. Okay. Adjusting and scaling our standardized recipes, we're going to use that conversion factor. Now, the conversion factor we're not using for your project, but there is a column for it on your project. Okay, your conversion factor is 1 because you're only making one recipe. Okay, so how we calculate our conversion factor is we take what we need and we divide it by our recipe yield. Okay, so let's do a really simple one. Let's say my recipe yields 4 servings. Okay, you guys following me so far? 4 servings is my recipe yield. If I need to make servings for 8 people, what do? I double it, right? So if I need 8 servings, I divide by 4, my conversion factor is 2. I double it. So it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, double it, triple it, quadruple it. That's okay. I need 16 servings, quadruple it. But what happens if I need to make 200 servings? I can't just say 200 divided by 4 is 50. I need to times it by 50. That's my conversion factor. That's how I extend it, right? But let's say I only needed 170 portions. Okay? So what is 170 divided by 4? 42.5. So I can take all of my ingredients, what I need to make 4 servings, I can take all my ingredients, multiply it by 42.5, and I'm going to end up with enough to do 170 servings. Okay? Does that make sense?
So like 1 and 1/2.
Yeah.
42.
1 1/2 cups times 42.5. That'll give me how many cups I need of that particular ingredient. Okay? Now, only having 4 servings, if I rounded it up to 43, I'm going to have enough for 172 servings. Okay? So only making 4 servings, that's not a huge deal if I round it up to 42.5 up to 43. I'm going to have 2 extra servings.
You can use those free samples.
Yeah, you can use those free samples, exactly, right? You can do that, or if you're doing something that has like, let's say it makes 45 or 40 servings. So let's say you're making like a pasta sauce that makes 4, I'll do that one in reds. Okay? Let's say our pasta sauce actually makes 40 servings. And I need, Michael, how many servings of pasta sauce do I need? Make it kind of a random number. We need 27 servings. So 27 divided by 40 0.68. So my conversion factor is 0.68. I don't want to make 40 servings of pasta sauce. Okay, and so 0.68 is a little bit more than half, which 27 is a little bit more than half of 20 or 40. So this makes sense. This number makes sense. You might look at that and be like, whoa, 0.68. Well, we're making less than what our recipe is, and so that means we're going to have less than 1 as our conversion factor. Because sometimes we may not want to make the entire thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Baker's percentage. I wish I had a video camera to see everybody's facial expressions when I say Baker's percentage. Some of you who have no idea what it is, you're not jaded yet. You haven't had to do this, but that's okay. Baker's percentage. It is actually relatively simple, okay? Baker's percentage means what? Who knows what Baker's percentage is? Raise your hand. Yes.
It's all based off the flour's at 100%, everything else goes off based off that.
Exactly. So basically what it's saying is that flour is 100%, okay? And everything else is a ratio of that flour. And then from there, let's say my recipe makes 400 rolls. If I don't want to make 400 rolls, and I want to cut that maybe not in half, maybe not even in a quarter, I want to cut it in a specific way, I can actually use that flour weight. It's a little bit like the concept of the popularity index that we just did, right? We served 500 people today. Let's say it takes 500 pounds of flour. Let's just kind of convert that back into this example. 500 pounds of flour, that's how much of all those ingredients that we need that make up that 500 pounds of flour as a ratio of that. And then, let's say we only want to use 300 pounds of flour. Now we're going to multiply by each one of those ratios, okay? So let's take a look here. Our flour is 50 pounds, okay? 50 pounds, our flour weight represents 100%, okay? That is the whole. So if we're looking for a percentage of water, we do the part 33 pounds divided by our 50 pounds. And that gives me what? 33 divided by 50, 66%. Okay, 66% is my water ratio. Oops. Okay. Salt. We use 1 pound. So 1 divided by 50 is 2%. You're going to get 0.02. So that equals to 2%. And then yeast is 0.6 of a pound. So 0.6 divided by 50. 1.2?
No, 0.012.
0.012, which is 1.2%. Okay? %, check. 2%, 1.2%. Okay? So this is how we use Baker's percentage. How much was our flour weight here? 50 pounds, okay? And so what I want to do is I want to actually now only use 30 pounds of flour, okay? So if I only want to use 30 pounds of flour, now I multiply everything. 30 pounds times 0.66 gives me what? What's 30 times 0.66? 19.8 pounds. That's 19.8 pounds of water. I should do that one in blue. Salt. So salt is 2%. So 30 pounds times 2%, which is 0.02, gives me 0.6. So 0.6 of a pound of salt. And then the last one is yeast, 30 pounds times 0.012. So just a little over 1/3 of a pound of yeast. We see how this works? Baker's percentage. This is during the production process. I can't just go ahead and use 50 pounds of flour and double it, or I can't necessarily cut it in half because then that'd be 25 pounds. And I wouldn't have enough product. Okay, if I don't have enough product, I'm going to run out. If I just did everything all 50 pounds, I'm going to have too much. I'm going to produce too much product, And it's just baked goods. Well, it's just baked goods. It's just rolls. It's okay if we have extra. We could throw them away. Right?
No.
No, we can't. Right? That's where we're going to make up a lot of our money. If we're selling rolls. I used the example of the girl who made too much crazy bread when my sister was working at Little Caesars. Right? We're selling crazy bread for like $3. It costs us pennies to make it. So we're making a lot of profit each time we sell that. So if we waste that on a daily basis, that cost is going to add up. Okay? So that's why we want to use this baker's percentage. All right, monitoring our food production. Quality standards. What are some quality standards?
Green lettuce.
Green lettuce. Okay, good. Okay, so the Wagyu beef, we want to make sure that if we are selling that on the menu, we want to make sure we're having that as the actual product. Okay, but we want to make sure that the product is fresh. Okay, or if it's frozen, that it stays frozen until we prepare it. Okay, so we want to make sure we're maintaining those quality standards. Follow the standardized recipes. That's why we have them. Yes, sir.
I have a question. When we're doing our menu, if the ingredients is water,
Uh-huh.
are we purchasing that water?
No, technically water is part of your utility bill. So in this case, just don't worry about costing that out.
Okay.
If you have another assignment like this in a different class, I would ask that chef or that instructor about how you want to handle that. But for this class, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Good question. Follow the standardized recipes. You can't just decide, oh, today I want to add shrimp to this instead of chicken. Or today I want to add green bell peppers instead of red bell peppers. Or today I'm going to use salt instead of sugar. Okay? Now, hopefully that's not a conscious decision that you would put salt in a cake instead of sugar in a cake, or sugar in something instead of salt. But can we correct that? No. If we put a pound of salt in something, there is no going back from that. Okay? We've got to toss that product. So if we're not following the standardized recipes, this product is going to be thrown out. Okay? We talked about being an expo, right? Expediter. At TGR Fridays when I trained as expo maybe 2 days, and I just was like, nope, this is not for me. I can't do this. But we literally had a picture for everything. And so I could look at that and I could decide what that plate should look like before it goes out. Even when I did desserts, there was a picture of each dessert so that the servers that were making the desserts could actually create those and make sure that the quality was the same and consistent along the time. How many of you have ever had a manager order something just to test it? Anybody done that before? Right? So the manager's at a table, or they go to the bar and they order something to eat, or they sit at a table and they ask a server, hey, ring in a margarita for me. And so then they ring in a margarita. It's not so that they can drink it. Well, it shouldn't be because they can drink it. And they're doing it to test it, to make sure that the recipe is being followed. Order a hamburger this way with tater tots instead of french fries or whatever. And they're doing that so it comes out, and they're going to test it to make sure that it actually looks like the way it needs to look. Okay? Those need to be done periodically throughout the shift, just to make sure that the standards are being upheld. In the production process, we're going to talk about that prep sheet right here. Okay, so in this prep sheet, this is kind of a standardized example so that if you're something like, maybe you're like in a fine dining restaurant, your prep and your amounts might change on a daily basis based on reservations that you have coming in. But if you're someone who, whether it's just slow or busy, you might have two different pars. Okay, when I was at Chester's Hamburgers, I did prep, and so I would do I'd prep the lettuce, the tomatoes, the onions, the pickles, We take the big 5-gallon pickle bucket and break them into small little crocks so that it's easier for us to grab them during the shift. And so on the weekdays, the prep was maybe 6 to 8 crocks of tomatoes. On a weekend, it was maybe 10 to 12 crocks of tomatoes. So you can see when it's slow, we have one par. When it's busier, we have another. Okay? It just helps us with that preparation. Yes, sir.
What does EA and PA and
Okay, so for onion rings, we need 6 pans, or we need
Oh.
3 pans of onion rings. Cilantro lime ranch, we need 1 gallon of that. Whether we're busy or not, we're gonna prep 1 gallon of that. Okay? When we talk about each, that means prepared barbecue chicken. That means we're gonna do 16 each, 16 barbecue chickens. Okay? So each, EA is each. Let's see what else is in there. Minced shallots, 1/6 pan. We want to do 10 pounds of butter, 10 pounds of blue butter, and 10 pounds of sweet butter. Okay, the pound is that pound sign.
10 hashtag.
10 hashtag. Nope, it's 10 pounds. Okay, so that's how we control it during our production. You don't just go back there and say, hey, David, why don't you go back there and make some sweet butter? Well, no, you go back there and make 10 pounds of sweet butter. Okay, you have that production sheet that you need to work on. Questions, comments, concerns about that?
So when you establish your par for like the busy day,
Uh-huh.
and then say it's raining outside or there's a huge storm, and so you don't meet that par.
Yeah,
What are you doing with that carryover? Are you
that's a good question. So if it's something that we can reuse, so let's say we need 2 gallons of smoked salmon brine, okay? If we need that and we aren't busy, but we had leftovers, then same thing that we do when we're ordering, when we're purchasing, we take our par and we subtract what's in inventory. And that tells us what to actually produce, right? So if I'm, let's say, Chester's Hamburgers, my par is 10 crocks of tomatoes, and I know that there's 5 tomatoes in each crock, right? So my par is 50. Well, I go in there from the night before, and they still have 3 crocks of tomatoes. I'm going to check them to make sure that they're still good quality, that they're not, deteriorating, that I can use them, and then I'll take my par as 10, subtract what I have in inventory, and then I only prepare what I need to get back up to par. So it's the same thing, same concept in ordering. What we need to do, we're gonna make whatever we need to make to get back up to par.
Okay.
We're not gonna make 500 chicken wings just because the par is 500 chicken wings. We're gonna take what we have in inventory that we can use, subtract that, and then we'll actually use what we need to make up to get back up to par. That's a very good question.
Wild rice strudel, that sounds interesting.
What's that?
I want recipes, the menu items was a wild rice strudel.
Wild rice strudel?
Yeah, it says it, right?
I can't go back, but
No, it's right, right.
that does sound
I
interesting.
know, right?
That is interesting. During production, ensuring our proper holding temperature, so if it needs to be held cold, it needs to get back down into that 41 degrees. Otherwise, if it stays in that temperature danger zone for too long, we have to throw it out. Okay? If it needs to be held hot, like a soup, we need to make sure that it's consistently held hot. Otherwise, if it's in that temperature danger zone, we have to throw it out. Okay? So that's how we can, in this production process. Something else we can do is only pull things out when we actually need them. We talk about this in the sanitation class. If I'm making something, I'm not going to pull all my ingredients out if it's not something I'm going to need till the very end, right? I might prep it, maybe mise en place it, but then put it back under refrigeration. It's going to take me a while to make whatever I'm making, okay? So those proper holding temperatures is important. And then carryovers. So Jackie mentioned something about carrying over things from one day to the next, okay? That's what we call waste management or leftover management. Okay, so my leftover management, I've got brisket. I smoked too many briskets. Okay, so what am I going to do?
Brisket sandwich.
Brisket sandwiches the next day.
Or chili.
Or I might put into chili, and I might make a chili. Or the next day, brisket nachos. I might chop it up and do chopped brisket sandwiches, right? And so there's all these different things that we can do with it. Also in the preparation process, you know, I've used the example where Chef Costello taught some elementary school cafeteria workers how to utilize the stalks of the broccoli to make broccoli cheese soup. We can also do things like when we debone the chicken, we're making chicken salad, we debone that chicken, what do we do with all the bones? And we can use it to make stock. Rather than just throwing those bones away, we can use it to make stock. If we roast the chicken and then debone it, we can use those bones to make a stock out of instead of just throwing them away, right? And so using our ingredients as best as possible. Chef, what's his name? Can't think of his name with Cured. Chef McHugh. Chef McHugh owns and operates Cured in the Pearl Brewery. They buy an entire animal and they use every single piece of it, every single part of it. Okay, and so they are very conscious and aware of using that product because you paid for it. Okay, you've paid for it, so you might as well get as much use as possible out of that. There was, the book talks about a restaurant, I think it was TGI Fridays, I can't remember if it was or not. They reference it as a restaurant, but I think it was TGI Fridays that introduced the potato skins, loaded potato skins. So they literally had a bunch of potatoes left over, baked potatoes left over. Well, what can I do with these? Slice them out, hollow them out, put some cheese and bacon and chives on it, call it an appetizer, and people are going to buy it. And loaded potato skins is like a really popular, and they're really good, yeah. It's a really popular appetizer. Because you got to get creative sometimes. You may have leftover stuff. Now, there may be stuff that you can go ahead and use the next day, right? If it's chicken salad and you've prepped 2 gallons of it and you've only used a gallon, chances are you can probably use that again the next day, okay?
Or your condiments like tartar sauce or coffee.
Yeah, sauces and things like that. You can probably use that again as long as it's dated and you know when it was actually prepared, okay? And so that carryover is leftover management.
So what about in the case that you use like the brisket? Say you are, you have your forecasting and you've already got your briskets cooking, and then it turns out you don't sell all the briskets that you had. So now that's just kind of building up, at least for like that next day, you've got
Right.
everything for the previous day plus everything for cooking. How do you manage that?
So that's a good question. Typically, you can cool down. Maybe if you're a barbecue snob, don't hate me if I say this, okay? But you could probably cool those briskets down, the whole briskets, just not slice them, and then you can reheat them for service. Because chances are that you're probably not going to, even if you're smoking like 10 briskets, chances are that you're actually going to end up having to cool some of those down anyways, because they're not just going to sit there and keep smoking the entire day, right? And so chances are you're going to have to like cool them down anyways. Once you slice it, and this is just Mr. Minsky's opinion, once you slice the brisket, if it's a whole brisket, I feel like the integrity of it is still kind of intact. Once you slice it, it deteriorates a little bit faster. It's harder to reheat slices of brisket than it is like a whole brisket.
So it's just making sure you know how to manage what you're...
Manage your inventory and your production, absolutely.
Like, for those heated briskets, and you were shopping like chopped briskets in, you just chop them up.
Yeah, toss it with some sauce, and even if your restaurant doesn't do chopped brisket sandwiches,
Yeah, special.
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I don't know if you go to Buc-ee's at all, but Buc-ee's, they have chopped brisket, and it's like $13 a pound for chopped brisket. It's actually more expensive than their sliced brisket. There's a little bit more prep that's involved with it, right? But it's actually a little bit more expensive. So if you got like really great price on brisket and you want to order a bunch of brisket and then you chop it up, I mean, think about H-E-B. They sell chopped brisket in the freezer section. Chop it up, freeze it, and then you can have chopped brisket sandwiches when you bought it on a really good price. And then that can be, now if you reheat it, once you reheated it, you can't chill it and then reheat it again, right?
Integrity.
You can't keep doing that, but you can definitely do something like that, which will give you, if your menu price is based on a certain dollar amount per pound of brisket, and it drops below that, that means you're making even a little bit more money each time you sell that. Yeah, so just managing your inventory and managing the production. We don't just go in there and be like, yep, let's make all this food, okay? Yeah. Beverage production. So a lot of things that happen that apply to beverages, apply to food, also apply to beverages. So your manager might order a drink at the bar just to test that mixed beverage to make sure that it actually tastes the way it's supposed to come. The garnish is the way it's supposed to come. All that is there, okay? In the interest of time, we have 5 minutes, so I want to talk about 2 different types of controlling our beverage costs. But what I want to do real quick, because I've not done this yet in this class, is 1 liter equals 33.8 ounces. 33.8 ounces is 1 liter of liquid. Okay?
Just regular water?
Any liquid.
Okay.
1 liter is equal to 33.8 ounces. I want you to memorize that. That's going to be question number 1 on your quiz on Wednesday, is how many ounces are in 1 liter? We are having a quiz on Wednesday. Yes, 33.8 ounces in 1 liter of liquid. Okay? So we're going to watch these 2 videos. At this point, I'm going to end the recording, and we're going to watch